Hi, welcome to episode 223 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea where I sell my handspun yarns, and we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. Hi, how are you? Welcome to episode 223. It is Sunday morning, March 24th at about 9:30 in the morning. Today is a spinning Sunday, so I'm going to be leaving shortly to go and spin with friends in kind of middle and eastern Kansas. And I am going to take my Corgi Hill farms that I showed you last week, but I can talk about that a little bit later. It has been a pretty good week. It has only been a short time since I talked to you last, so I will not have as much stuff to show you, although I do actually have quite a bit of small things to show you. I don't have a huge amount of progress since I saw you last, since I just came to you on Tuesday, but I thought I would get back on track and podcast today. So I hope you've had a lovely week. We have been enjoying the first vestiges of spring. Wednesday was the spring equinox, and it has been in the 50s and 60s this week, and we even had some sun, and it was so lovely. And I think I said this on one of my last podcasts. I hadn't realized how cold and dreary it had been this winter until the sun came out, and all of a sudden it was like birds singing, and I was happy. And I mean, I am not one who tends to have mood changes around winter. I actually do like winter, but usually what happens is that it's very cold, but we do get a lot of sun, and we don't get a ton of snow and ice. So usually it's just cold for a while, but at least it's bright and sunny, and even if you go outside in the cold, sometimes if you stand in the sun, you get a little bit of the warmth. So this winter has just been very, very overcast and gray, and lots of snow and rain and ice, and I just didn't realize how much I missed the sun. So it's been nice. Today, unfortunately, is a little bit overcast, but the other thing that I always think of, meaning spring, is we call it a creek, but really it's a poorly designed drainage ditch. But when it rains a lot, as it has been, we end up having this little kind of slow-moving creek that runs through, or fast-moving, depending on the day, through our front yard. And in the spring and summer, the frogs are in that little water feature on our property. And I can always tell when it's spring and summer's about to come because I hear the frogs start croaking, and actually they're doing it during the day today. Usually I notice it most like twilight in the evening. And so it is kind of my little reminder that spring is coming. And it's very funny because I was raised in Los Angeles, where I did not hear lots of frogs and crickets and things, and this marks my 11th year in Kansas City and in the Midwest, and we definitely live in the suburbs. We live out the south side of Kansas City, and we are not rural by any stretch of the imagination, but we are definitely not urban either. And there are farms out here, and we do have a decent amount of property, and, well, I mean, not that much. We've got about an acre and a half. But I mean, the houses are not right on top of each other, and it is, so you see things like turtles and little bit of everything. Turtles, raccoons, squirrels, deer, frogs, and so it's just kind of interesting that I've become kind of Midwestern in that, like, that spring to me means the croaking of the frogs in the creek. So that was probably a long explanation and not very interesting, but there you go. Let's jump into the podcast. Today I am drinking a Church Mouse tea, which is made by Stephen Smith Tea Maker. It is number 512 Church Mouse Winter. It is a black tea with Assam, Ceylon, and China Yunnan. And it is a lovely tea. I got it from Church Mouse Yarn and Teas, which I hope to visit one day, because who doesn't need to go to a tea and yarn store? Seriously? And I am drinking that today in my Batman Skills mug, and I have had this one, well, okay, I've had the mug for a while, but this is an illustration by Carl Mountford. I got it on Society 6. I don't know if it's still there because it was several years ago. He has quite a few others. I think he has a Thor, he has a Wonder Woman, there might be a Robin, and I can't remember if there are any others. And I have had this tea before, and it is delicious, and it seemed like a good morning black tea. So, let's get into the knits. I have something finished. It is a small project, and I showed it to you last week, and actually I have a skein left over. This is the Shepherd's Lamb yarn that I was sent for review. It is a mix of wool. It is a 2-ply DK weight, 100% fine wool from the mountains of northern New Mexico. It was dyed in cochineal, which, as I said last week, is a natural dye, and cochineal is reddish pink, and it comes, I believe, from insect shells. This is 2-ounce skein, approximately 180 yards, and the suggested gauge is 6 stitches per inch. I knit some mitts, which I will show you, but I actually did not have to break into the second skein. So as I said last week, let's do a giveaway. If you are interested in winning this skein, which, like I said, is 180 yards of a DK weight yarn, it would be perfect for some fingerless mitts, or perhaps a hat or a small cowl. What I want you to do is leave a comment here on the podcast. Tell me what you would make out of this, and I will send you a copy of the pattern you would like, and the skein of yarn. And I'll throw in some tea in there as well. So leave a comment on this podcast, and I will say, because I've had a little bit of trouble with this in the recent past, if you enter to win and I ask you to leave a comment on YouTube, I am going to announce the winner in the next episode, and you will have to watch the next episode and contact me to claim your prize. So, and if you don't, I will go ahead and award the next person who comes up in the random number generator. So again, tell me what you would like to make out of 180 yards of DK weight in this beautiful yarn, and I will gift you the pattern and the yarn. Everyone is welcome to apply. It doesn't matter if you're overseas, but just leave me a comment and let me know. So let me show you what I made. I made something called the pattern called the Weekend Walking Mitts by Diana Walla. Diana? I can't remember if it's Diane or Diana, of Paper Tiger. And there will be a link in the show notes and on my project page. And I had just enough yarn to do both mitts. This is what I had left over. And I knit the mitts in the size small, but these are a little bit longer and they are cabled. So they look like this, and they have not been washed and blocked yet, but I will put one on to show you. They are really nice, kind of mid-arm length, and they have this nice feature, which is you knit the cuff at the top really long, and then you can fold it over. A nice thumb and a beautiful cable pattern, which actually is, some of the bits are kind of reversed for the left hand. So let me put on the left-handed one. The yarn was lovely to work with. It is definitely a little bit, I don't want to say rustic because it is super soft. It's definitely sheepy. I can smell sheepy, and I know when I wash it, it's going to smell sheepy. But these are my weekend walking mitts. And like I said, they've got a really nice cable detail on the top, plain on the bottom. I knit the smallest size on US 4s. For me, that actually gives me a little bit of room here, but there are 2 other sizes on there. I just have really small hands, and I would imagine that you could get larger size mitts out of a skein of DK weight, perhaps not so much on the cuff, but you could get some nice mitts. So these are the mitts. I will try and have my husband take some pictures today because it is really hard to take pictures of your own hands. And I enjoyed the project. It was a very quick knit. I knit these up in about 3 or 4 days. I think 4 days. I did about half a mitt each night, and they just are the perfect kind of instant gratification project, and the yarn itself is lovely. So if you would like to try it, like I said, leave me a comment. Tell me what pattern you would like to knit. and I will draw a winner and award that prize next week. So these are the Weekend Walking Mitts by Diane Walla, and in my Shepherd's Lamb, which is a beautiful ranch out of New Mexico. So those were lovely. I can't say enough good things about them. I realize that it is spring and I will probably not wear them much now. However, I do not believe we are beyond the last snow. That is one of those things to keep track of in the Midwest. It has almost snowed on my birthday before, which is May 5th. So I believe it snowed on like May 3rd or May 4th before, and it was big, heavy snow, and then the next day it was not that cold. But it is only March 24th, so we are not done. Mark my words, we will have another snow, even though it's pretending to be spring outside. So that is my finished project. I do not have any other finishes for you. I do have a first sock finished, which is not really a finish because it's only half. But I finished my first sock in the, well, let me show you the correct side because I screwed up on the cables on one of the sides. This is the correct side. Otherwise, you can see those eagle-eyed among you will see that I screwed up on the cable here and then I corrected it down there. So yeah. These are the Pebbles and Pathways socks by Marceline Smith, that she is Hey Brownberry, and as I said, I'm knitting them in some yarn that I don't know exactly what it is. It is a green. It feels like it may or may not be superwash. It's a little bit thicker than a lot of the yarns that I've been using, but it is in a bright springy green, and I paired it with some merino cashmere. I can't remember whether it's silk or nylon. I have the tag in here. It is superwash merino cashmere silk, that I had a mini of in this brown, and I enjoyed knitting this sock, and once I got it going the correct way, you can watch my previous episodes to see some of my frustrations with my own knitting, and I have just started. I have just the cuff on the second sock, but that will be my quick pick up and put down, purse knitting kind of project for now, to finish the second sock. And I don't think we'll make it by the end of the month, but that's fine. Spring socks are still nice anytime in spring, and if I don't get to wear them now, I will wear them in the fall. So those are making me happy. That is Pebbles and Pathways by Marceline Smith, Hey Brownberry, in the I don't know yarns for the most part, and I am knitting them on a size US 0. So those are looking good and fitting nice and snug, and I'm super happy with them now, and we'll knit the second one to match. So those are mostly what I've been working on. You won't notice a ton of progress, but I did bring this one since I have been working on it. At knit night this week, I pulled out my boxy, and I am working on my boxy right now as part of the knit along or craft along, or I guess we're calling it a make along, that is going on in my group in conjunction with the Northern Knits podcast, and that is the Spring Make Along. And the Spring Garment Make Along, I have to add all the words. The Spring Garment Make Along is a make along to make yourself a spring garment. I know that sounds very obvious. Garments count as t-shirts, tank tops, camisoles, sweaters, shawls, skirts, dresses, anything that would add to your spring wardrobe. It was originally conceived to also use cotton and linen blends, although that is not a must. Whips that are less than 50% complete are applicable, and the make-along will started on the spring equinox March 20th and will end on the summer solstice, which is June 21st. So you have quite a bit of time, because that's 3 full months, to work on a spring garment. I decided to resurrect my boxy pullover, which isn't exactly a spring garment, but it is a light fingering weight sweater with not full sleeves, and I imagine that on some of the chilly spring days I could wear this, although not if I don't finish it fairly quickly, because then it will be hot here. However, I am calling this part of my spring make-along, and this is where I am at. I forgot to take a measurement, but I'm going to go with probably between 8 and 10 inches. And I have just finished, transitioned from my first to second ball of yarn, and I'm working on my second ball of yarn now. And hoping that I don't think I did take a chance with this and decided to not to alternate every round, but just to alternate do some overlap between where I change balls, and I think it's going to be okay. I can't 100% tell, but I'm pretty sure they were all dyed together and they'll be fine, and if not, that's my fault, not the dyer's fault. I am using, let's see if I have a tag in here. I believe I do. I am using Woolly Wonka for yarns, fibers, and knitting patterns. It is her Gaia sock, which is 100% superwash merino. It is a single, and it's 400 yards per 100 gram skein, and it is in the mulberry colorway. And unfortunately, I cannot tell you, oh yes, I can tell you what size needle I'm using. I'm using US 4s for the body, which is as the pattern directs. I did note in previous weeks that when I cast this on, I cast on fewer stitches than the pattern called for. The pattern as written in my size calls for approximately 20 inches of ease, and that was too much for me. It was just looking absolutely enormous, and although I have seen it look flattering on almost every body type, I did not want that much ease. What I did is I went and measured an oversized sweater that I have that I really like, and it was about 50 inches as opposed to 68 inches. And so I am knitting the 50 inches, which gives me approximately 12 inches of ease, which I think will be much better for me. I'm sorry, the original calls for a 68 and I'm a 38 bust, so that would be 30 inches of ease. So that was way too much. I basically went down to 12 inches, and I think I'm going to be really happy. It's still very wide, and it's taking a while to work up. Basically, I have to knit up to a certain point, and then I will split for the front and back, and then they're basically like 3/4 sleeves, but they're very dropped shoulder sleeves. So that is where I am at with that one. This one is coming out when I need something that I don't have to think about. So like I took it to knit night the other night, and that was really nice. It is going to be my mindless at the end of the day knit, don't have to think about it kind of project, and I hope to finish that over the next 3 months. I can't imagine that I won't, but it will not be my primary project right now because I have some other things that I need to knit. So that is my progress on that. Again, that is the Boxy Pullover by Joji Locatelli, and I am knitting it in Woolly Wonka Fibers Gaia in Mulberry. And that is in my Knit and Stitch Bits bag. She is a seller on Ravelry. She is located in Australia, so they take a little bit to get to me, but I love her bags and I use them quite frequently. So, the final knit that has not even been cast on yet, but I thought I would show you because I have swatched and I'm going to cast on this evening, is I will be sample knitting for Zen Yarn Garden again, and they are one of my favorite yarn companies. They are also, for full disclosure, a client and now someone who I also work with as a sample knitter. They decided they would like a Comfort Fade cardigan by Andrea Mowry, who is Drea Renee Knits. I am knitting it in the size extra large, so it will take me a bit. And they sent me these 4 colors. I'm going to put them together to knit in. So I will be starting this evening. I have the most of the black, so that will be probably the bulk of the color, but it's a natural, a silver, a multi with silver and red, and then the black. And so that is going to be a really, really nice cardigan and something that I'm going to be working on quite a bit in the next several weeks, and is something that I can show you. So you will get to see the progress. So that is what I'm going to be working on. Ready to cast that on, need to wind these up and get started. This is a DK weight. It is potentially a new base for them, so I'm not going to discuss it too much, but their color sense is just gorgeous. So this one, the gray and red multi is probably my favorite. It's got white and gray and red, and it's just going to be stunning, particularly up against the black. So that is about what I'm going to cast on for. So, sip of tea, and then I'll talk about spinning real fast, and then we'll be done. I'm sorry this one is a short one, but since I already talked to you earlier this week, I don't have a ton of things to talk about. Okay, let's do this. Spinning. I finally finished the gray. This is the Silver Shetland from Ross Farms. It was about 6 ounces, although when I was done, I came out with 5.6 ounces. I think that is primarily due to vegetable matter and bits and pieces that I pulled out. I spun this on my mini spinner. I tried to spin super thin, and in some cases I got that, and in some cases it's kind of lumpy and bumpy. I would say that I spun this in a mixed kind of part woolen, part worsted. My typical spinning is worsted spinning, but this was super sticky and kind of lent itself to woolen spinning, and I won't say that I'm a hugely adept woolen spinner, so I would say this was kind of a mixed. I mean, I pulled back kind of spinning in a woolen prep, but then I also smoothed and ran through, so that was more of a worsted prep. So this is kind of a mix, and as you can see up close, it is kind of inconsistent. There are thick and thin bits. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with the way it came out. I think I ended up with between 500 and 600 yards, and I don't know what weight it's going to be. I would say a bunch of it is fingering weight, but then there's other parts of it that are definitely not fingering weight. It is also kind of fuzzy and has a halo. It's not like super distinct, so I'll be interested to see how this works. Overall, I would say that this was definitely not my favorite spinning experience. I generally spin from prepared top, and this was quite a bit more rustic. It has been scoured and cleaned, but I think it has been fairly minimally processed because there is still a lot of vegetable matter in it. And then there are some guard hairs, like the outer hairs and some of the inner coat, and it makes for this really beautiful mottled gray. But I just found it kind of a frustrating experience to spin. I'm the kid in preschool who didn't want to get dirty. Like, seriously, I was the kid who never wanted to like play in the dirt and mud. And my experience spinning this is that I had to put something down on my lap because there was tons of like vegetable matter and just all kinds of fuzz and maybe dust that fell out. And like, it wasn't really gross, but I definitely had to, like, everywhere I went, even when I wound it off the bobbins, there was like a little pile of stuff on my desk, just like a thin coat where I had been winding. So, I mean, it wasn't 100% clean. It's not what I'm used to. And there is nothing wrong with that, but that is also not my favorite way to spin. Also, I found spinning kind of the worsted woolen prep and the fact that it was super sticky a little bit of a challenge. I am used to much more slippery fibers. So overall, I would say that the spin wasn't one that I loved, but I do actually really love the finished yarn. So now I need to wash it and see what kind of yardage I get. And I don't know if I will make exactly my goal in, so I told the story several episodes ago when I started this. The reason that I bought this was because I was at Plyaway last year and someone had a beautiful shawl made out of natural yarn that she had hand spun. And she was much, at least as far as I could tell, she was a much more even spinner than me and probably had spun lace weight. And so I had this lace weight shawl in mind. And even if I get 500 to 600 yards, that may or may not. My guess is I'll have to pick like a fingering weight shawl and do it on a slightly larger needle. And it will be fine, but it wasn't exactly what I had in mind for this. But it was an interesting experience, and we learn as spinners by trying things. And I don't know how soon I'll repeat it, but I did learn quite a bit from this. So this is the Silver Shetland from Ross Farm, and like I said, I spun that up, and I am really happy to have it done because it means I can move on to something else. So last week I showed you, and I don't have it here because I already packed it up. Last week I showed you a Corgi Hill Farm braid. It was a gradient braid in beautiful blues called Hurricane. It was a merino silk 80-20 blend, and that is what I'm going to take with me and spin at Spinning Sunday today, and I ought to get through at least half of that today because we spin for 4 hours. So I will bring that back next week and show you, and that one will go in the shop. So I think that is all I have to tell you today. Remember, we have the knit along going. There is a thread in the Revelry group with all the details and rules. You know I'm not a huge fan of rules. There are a couple more this time than last time, but that is part and parcel of joining up with another podcast. They had some preferences, I had some preferences, and we compromised on everything. Although actually I shouldn't say we compromised because it makes it sound like we disagreed on a lot of things, and we actually didn't. So there are a few more rules than I usually do in mine, but they did have some specific interests. So check out the rules in my group if you are so inclined. Also check out the Northern Knits podcast. They are delightful, and they should have their thread started as momentarily. I didn't see it when I last looked a day or two ago when I set my thread up, but as soon as their thread is up, I will put a link to it in my thread, and feel free to go over there and chat and meet the Northern Knits podcast crew. And then again, as I said, giveaway for a skein of Shepherd's Lamb. Sorry, I was going to say Shepherd's Farm. Shepherd's Lamb, their beautiful wool dyed with cochineal. It is 180 yards of a DK weight. Again, leave a comment below telling me what pattern you would like to knit, and I will gift you the pattern and the yarn. So that wraps it up for this episode. Until I see you again, I will say, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye!